purchase of an entire abandoned town represents an extreme form of withdrawal from society. This phenomenon occurs when individuals seek total isolation, often after achieving significant material success. Unlike traditional retreats to remote cabins or islands, acquiring a town provides complete control over an entire environment. The infrastructure of a town, roads, buildings, utilities, remains intact but unused, creating a ready-made ghost town. This level of purchase differs from buying property. It involves acquiring municipal assets and sometimes mineral rights. The motivation often stems from a desire to escape surveillance, social obligations, and the pressures of public life. Such towns are typically located in remote areas with declining populations, making them available for purchase. The practical challenges include maintaining security over a large area and managing deteriorating infrastructure alone. This represents the ultimate form of privacy, controlling not just a home, but an entire community-sized space. The psychological impact of such extreme isolation differs markedly from conventional wealthy lifestyles. This narrative explores a distinct pattern within modern wealth stories: the retreat from extreme affluence. It moves beyond the classic rags to riches arc to examine the pressures that follow immense financial achievement. The individuals in these cases typically amass fortunes in high-pressure sectors like technology or finance. This level of success often places them under intense global scrutiny and personal expectation. The resulting psychological strain can manifest as a desire to physically disengage from that world entirely. Their subsequent actions represent a form of extreme survival, not in wilderness, but against the environment their wealth created. The retreat is a drastic, tangible response to the intangible burdens of modern prosperity. This case study examines the mechanisms and personal costs behind such a decisive life pivot. The retreat was established in a purchased ghost town, a former mining or railroad community in a remote region. Original inhabitants had long departed, leaving behind empty structures and a landscape marked by industrial decline. Such locations are often chosen for retreats due to their isolation and the availability of existing, though derelict, infrastructure. The timeline for these events is contemporary, occurring within the last few decades. This places the story in a modern context, where communication and rescue technologies were available, yet remoteness remained a significant factor. The core narrative is built on several key, verifiable points that outline this unusual situation. In survival scenarios, the initial conditions, like a remote location with limited resources, set the stage for the challenges to come. The purchased town provided a fixed, known location, unlike being lost in a trackless wilderness, which changes the dynamics of the situation. The acquisition was documented through standard public records and business filings. A private holding entity, controlled by an individual, purchased the land and structures of a derelict town. This type of transaction is common in real estate when properties are sold as assets. The sale was recorded as a standard property transaction, not based on local stories or legends. Derelict towns are often purchased for redevelopment, investment, or preservation purposes. Private holding entities provide a legal structure for individuals to manage such acquisitions discreetly. The transaction followed standard procedures for transferring ownership of real property. This demonstrates how abandoned locations transition through documented, legal channels rather than mysterious means. This motivation, as documented in rare interviews and through associates, was explicitly about seeking isolation. The individual described feeling overwhelmed by the constant demands of their business empire. Public scrutiny and the sheer weight of managerial responsibility added to this pressure. This is a common pattern among high-profile individuals who seek extreme isolation to escape relentless professional demands. The ghost town wasn't chosen as a novelty or for adventure. It was specifically envisioned as a fortress of solitude, a deliberate barrier against the outside world. Such locations provide physical distance that creates psychological separation from professional obligations. This decision reflects a documented survival mechanism, removing oneself from overwhelming environments to preserve mental endurance. The initial purchase was just the beginning. Significant capital was invested beyond the acquisition itself. Reports indicate funds were allocated for basic modernization of the remote site. This included installing solar power systems for off-grid electricity generation. Satellite internet was established to provide a fragile data link to the outside world. Water purification systems were implemented to make local water sources safe for consumption. The goal was to transform a collection of ruins into a habitable, though extremely remote, private compound. This phase of investment represents the practical challenges of surviving in isolation. However, there is much this transaction, and the subsequent renovations do not tell us about the broader situation. This purchase was not a casual indulgence like acquiring a collector's vehicle. Available documentation indicates it was a calculated, expensive response to significant psychological pressure. Such behavior aligns with known patterns, where individuals under extreme duress seek isolated environments. The financial commitment involved suggests a level of planning typically reserved for critical life strategies. Comparisons to eccentric collecting, failed to capture the functional intent behind this acquisition. Records regarding the long-term occupation or use of the property remain incomplete or unclear. This gap in information is common in cases involving private retreats used for coping mechanisms. The primary evidence points toward a survival-oriented expenditure, not a leisurely hobby. The duration of occupation in survival shelters varies dramatically, based on environmental conditions and available resources. Some shelters serve their purpose for days or weeks, providing critical protection from elements and predators. Others become long-term burdens when survivors become trapped by injury, weather, or psychological factors. The psychological transition from refuge to prison often occurs when hope for rescue diminishes. This pattern appears across different survival scenarios, from mountain expeditions to maritime disasters. The shelter's effectiveness depends on whether it facilitates eventual rescue or recovery. Without this resolution, shelters can become psychological anchors that prevent necessary movement. Documented cases show shelters serving both roles, sometimes sequentially during the same ordeal. The narrative often presents this as a complete vanishing, but records show the individual maintained contact with business associates. This suggests the withdrawal was not absolute, but a series of strategic retreats from public life. Such patterns are observed in cases of executive burnout or intense public scrutiny, where individuals seek periodic isolation. The core question remains psychological. Did this self-imposed exile achieve its intended purpose of mental restoration? Unlike survival scenarios with clear physical threats, here the challenge was internal, a battle against stress or disillusionment. The ultimate measure of success in such a radical step is not public reappearance, but long-term personal equilibrium. The purchase of an entire town raises a fundamental question. Does extreme wealth solve problems, or simply relocate them to a more isolated environment? This case study provides practical insights that extend far beyond the subject's immense financial resources. It reveals the non-financial costs associated with achieving high-stakes success in competitive fields. One significant cost is the complete loss of privacy that often accompanies public achievement. Another is the erosion of personal peace, as constant pressure and scrutiny become inescapable realities. This isolation can manifest physically through relocation to remote properties, and socially through strained personal connections. The mechanisms here are psychological. Success can create barriers between an individual and their previous community. Comparatively, this pattern mirrors challenges faced by other high-profile individuals across various industries, not just the ultra-wealthy. This pattern of withdrawal after extreme achievement is not unique to ghost towns. High-profile individuals often retreat to guarded compounds or remote properties following major success. Digital detoxes represent a contemporary version of this same withdrawal impulse. The common thread is the urge to create separation from the public sphere. Ghost towns serve as a physical, historical example of this psychological and social mechanism. The ultimate subject here is not supernatural phenomena, but the barriers people construct. These gates, whether physical walls or digital disconnection, define the modern landscape of exile. The concept questions what barriers truly separate us from what we seek to escape. It demonstrates that purely geographic solutions, with enormous financial costs, often address surface pressures. These pressures include population density, urban noise pollution, and overwhelming societal demands. Such approaches treat symptoms without confronting the underlying psychological or systemic causes. The story serves as a stark reminder of this fundamental distinction. Building higher physical barriers does not equate to achieving genuine peace or resolution.